Some minds do not fall asleep by being told to stop. They need something quiet enough to follow. The number is on the screen. It arrived there sometime during the night. Assembled by the device on the wrist, transmitted to the application, processed through the algorithm that converts the raw signals into the single value that is now displayed. The number is between 0 and 100. It represents, according to the device's documentation, the quality of the night's sleep. A high number suggests a night that the device's model considers restorative. A low number suggests a night the model considers insufficient. The number was not there when the night began. The device was on the wrist when the light went off. It was on the wrist through the hours of the night, pressing against the skin at the inner wrist. The sensors on its underside in contact with the skin throughout. The skin was in contact with the sensors for the full duration. The warmth of the wrist transferring into the device's housing. The device's weight distributed across the contact area. The small optical components pointing into the tissue throughout the hours. The device was recording. The number is what that recording produced. The number is not what it appears to be. Not false. Not a number that has no relationship to what happened in the body during the night. But not what it appears to be in the sense that a temperature reading appears to be. A direct measurement of a physical quantity. The instrument in contact with the thing being measured. The reading a direct translation of that contact into a number. The sleep score is not that kind of number. It is the output of a chain of inferences, each step in the chain converting one kind of signal into another, each conversion adding a layer of interpretation between the sensor and the thing the sensor is supposed to be measuring. The chain begins in the wrist. On the underside of the device, several small lights emit into the skin. They are green, typically, wavelengths in the range of 520 to 560 nanometers, chosen because blood absorbs green light more strongly than it absorbs other visible wavelengths. The light passes through the outer layers of the skin and into the tissue below, where it encounters capillaries, the small blood vessels that carry blood close to the surface. Some of the light is absorbed by the blood in these capillaries. Some is reflected back toward the surface. A sensor on the device detects the reflected fraction. The outer layers of the skin scatter some of the light before it reaches the capillaries. The tissue between the sensor and the capillaries is not uniform. It varies in thickness and composition from one point to the next across the contact area. The device averages across the area its sensor covers, receiving a signal that represents the aggregate of the light reaching back from all the capillaries beneath the contact zone. Different devices with different sensor sizes and positions on the wrist receive slightly different signals from the same wrist on the same night. The amount of light that is absorbed by the blood is not constant. When the heart contracts and pushes a pulse of blood into the capillaries, the concentration of blood in the tissue briefly increases. More blood means more absorption. The reflected fraction decreases. When the pulse passes and the capillaries return to their resting volume, the blood concentration decreases. The reflected fraction increases. This cycle, more blood, less reflection, less blood, more reflection, repeats with each heartbeat. The sensor detects it as a wave, a regular oscillation in the intensity of the reflected light. 1 cycle per heartbeat. The timing of these cycles is the pulse. The device extracts 2 things from this signal. The first is the heart rate, the number of cycles per minute. The second is more precise, the interval between each cycle and the next. Not the average interval, but each individual interval, measured to the nearest millisecond. The difference between one interval and the next. The variation in this difference over sequences of beats. This variation is called heart rate variability. The variation is not noise. It is the record of a nervous system adjusting beat by beat. 2 branches of the autonomic system in continuous dialogue, one pressing the rate upward, one pressing it down. The small difference in their timing producing the slight irregularity in the interval from one beat to the next. In a body at rest, the dialogue is nuanced, the variation present. When the system is under load, the dialogue becomes less nuanced. The intervals become more uniform. The variation decreases. The device monitors this variation through the night. During the hours of sleep, the variation follows a pattern that corresponds, on average, across many people, to the stages the body passes through. In deep sleep, the heart rate is low and the variation follows a particular signature. In the stage of sleep associated with vivid dreaming, the heart rate is higher and more variable, and the autonomic pattern is different. In light sleep, the pattern differs from both. The device's algorithm has been trained on data that includes both the optical sensor readings and the electrical measurements of sleep stages. The gold standard method that requires electrodes placed on the scalp from a large number of people sleeping in laboratory conditions. From this training, it has learned which optical sensor patterns tend to correspond to which sleep stages. It applies this learning to the current night. The optical sensor produces its wave. The algorithm examines the wave's current shape, rate, and variability. It compares what it sees to the patterns it learned from the training data. It assigns a probability. This pattern is more consistent with deep sleep than light sleep. This pattern is more consistent with waking than with either. The assignment is not a measurement of sleep stage. It is an estimate generated by a model trained on population-level data, applied to an individual night. The device's second sensor is an accelerometer. It detects the orientation and acceleration of the device, which is to say, of the wrist the device is on. In sleep, the body is mostly still. The wrist is mostly still. The accelerometer registers low acceleration, stable orientation, the small perturbations of the mattress's surface as the body breathes, no more. In waking, the body moves. The wrist moves. The accelerometer registers these changes as shifts in the force it detects along its measurement axis. The accelerometer does not know whether the body is asleep. It knows the current orientation and acceleration of the wrist. From this, the algorithm draws inferences. A wrist that is still and at a consistent orientation is a wrist that is probably not being used for deliberate movement. A wrist that is moving, changing orientation, producing the patterns of acceleration that arm movement creates, is a wrist that is probably in use. The algorithm interprets the first condition as consistent with sleep and the second as consistent with waking. The interpretation is usually correct. It is not always correct. A body can lie still while awake, lying in the dark, not moving, the wrist completely still, the accelerometer producing the signal that the algorithm associates with sleep, while the body is fully awake. A body can move during sleep, repositioning, the movement that REM sleep sometimes produces in the arms, the small adjustments that deep sleep does not eliminate entirely. In these cases, the accelerometer's signal conflicts with or complicates what the optical sensor is indicating, and the algorithm weighs the combined evidence. The algorithm uses this data alongside the optical sensor data. Movement suggests waking. Stillness, combined with the heart rate variability patterns associated with sleep, suggests sleep. Stillness combined with the patterns associated with waking, the slightly higher heart rate, the different variability signature, suggests a body that is lying still but not asleep. The algorithm weighs these signals against each other, integrates them over intervals of 30 seconds or a minute, and produces a stage classification for each interval. The night, which passed as a continuous experience, or as the absence of experience, is divided into segments. Each segment receives a label. These labels are aggregated into the score. The score reflects the proportion of the night the algorithm classified as each stage, weighted by the algorithm's assessment of how restorative each stage is, combined with the total duration, adjusted for the device manufacturer's model of what a night of a particular age and health profile should look like. The result is a number between 0 and 100. The number did not measure the night. It measured what the sensor could receive from it. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The number is a compression. It has taken the optical sensor's wave, the continuous oscillation of reflected green light from the capillaries in the wrist, varying many times per second across the duration of the night, and converted it to pulse intervals. It has taken the pulse intervals and converted them to a variability measure. It has taken the variability measure and compared it to patterns in a model. It has taken the model's output and compared it to the accelerometer's output. It has taken the combined estimate and divided the night into labeled segments. It has taken the labeled segments and aggregated them into a single value. At each conversion, some information was retained and some was not. The optical sensor wave contains more information than the pulse intervals extracted from it. The full wave shape, the details of how the reflected light rises and falls within each cycle, information that the pulse interval extraction process does not carry forward. The pulse intervals contain more information than the variability measure computed from them. The exact value of each interval, the sequences of intervals across the night, the fine structure of the variability that the aggregate statistic compresses. The variability measure contains more information than the sleep stage classification derived from it. The variability is a continuous signal. The classification converts it to a discrete label, one of 4 or 5 categories, discarding the gradations within. Each step in the chain extracts the information the next step requires and discards the rest. What is on the screen is what survived this sequence of extractions. It is not a small amount. The number carries real information about the night, information that correlates across populations with outcomes that matter. But it is not the night. It is the residue of the night after it has been passed through the chain. The chain was designed to produce a useful residue. It does. What it cannot produce is what the chain discarded at each step. The light from the screen travels to the eye. The eye is dark adapted, or partially so. The room has been dark, and the eye has been moving toward its maximum sensitivity through the hours of sleep. The screen's output reaches the retina. The cells built to report the presence of blue-green light to the body's clock receive the screen's short wavelength output. The clock receives their report. Light is present. The chemistry shifts toward the waking state. The heart rate, which was at its sleeping level, low, regular, the variability running at the pattern the sleeping nervous system produces, begins to receive the signals appropriate to a body that is becoming more awake. It rises slowly, not the full acceleration of alarm. The gradual return to the waking rate at the speed the returning chemistry allows. Each beat slightly faster than the one before it, the intervals shortening, the variability pattern shifting from the sleeping signature toward the waking one. The breath, which was regular at the depth and rate of sleep, begins to shift. The postural muscles, which had been at the reduced tone of sleep, the release that the hours in the dark produced, begin to return toward waking tone. The eyelids hold the light of the screen. The hand that reached for the device is still holding it. The number on the screen is describing the past. The sensor on the wrist is measuring the present. The present includes the response to the number. The accelerometer registers the movement of the hand that reached for the device. The optical sensor is receiving data from the wrist of a body that is now partially awake. The heart rate beginning to rise from the sleeping level, the variability shifting from the sleeping pattern. The algorithm is classifying this interval. The classification will differ from the classification of the intervals that preceded it. Those intervals were still in sleep. This interval is the transition away from sleep, produced by the act of consulting the record of the sleep. The sensor does not know what the number said. It does not receive the interpretation. It receives the physiology. The physiology is changing because the number was read, and the sensor is recording the change, and the algorithm is classifying it, and the classification will eventually become part of the next score, which will arrive on the screen at the end of the next recording period as a number between 0 and 100. The measurement and the thing being measured are in contact. The instrument is now measuring the instrument's own effect on the night. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. The device's sensors continue running. The optical sensor is still emitting light into the skin. The reflected fraction is still varying with each heartbeat. The accelerometer is still detecting the orientation and motion of the wrist. The algorithm is still processing both signals, still classifying each 30-second interval against the patterns in its model, still producing a running assessment of the body's current state. The number on the screen is a photograph, not a live feed, a photograph of a duration that has already ended. The hours between the point when the recording began and the point when the algorithm compiled its output. The night to which it refers has passed. The sleep it describes cannot be changed by reading it, cannot be improved by finding it insufficient, cannot be recovered by lying down again in the same night. The hours are behind. What the sensor is measuring now is a different state. The state produced by waking in this room at this hour, by reaching for this device, by looking at this number. The optical sensor is measuring the pulse intervals of a body that is now more awake than it was before the screen came on. The accelerometer is registering the movement of the hand that holds the device. The algorithm is classifying this current interval. The classification it arrives at for this interval will reflect what the sensors are receiving now, not the sleep state, but the post-sleep, post-screen state. This classification will become part of the record. The next number is already being assembled. The optical sensor is recording the pulse intervals of this hour. The accelerometer is recording the current level of movement. The algorithm is classifying the current state. In the hours of sleep that will come, later tonight or the following night, the sensor will continue its recording, and the algorithm will continue its classification. And when the next morning arrives, there will be another number on the screen, assembled from the data of the intervening hours. That number will also be a compression. It will also be the output of the chain, light to pulse to variability to classification to score. It will also describe what the sensor could receive from the night, not the night itself. It will arrive on the screen as a single value, carrying inside it the sequence of conversions that produced it, each conversion having retained what the next step required and discarded the rest. The chain does not pause between nights. On the wrist, the green light continues. The pulse changes beneath it. The interval will become part of the record. The record will become part of the next number. Breath enters. Breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. When night falls, the archive remains.